Tonight on Real News from the Blaze, numbers out of Wisconsin look good for embattled Governor Scott Walker. But what do they say about November, if anything, Will?
We're going to analyze that. Like you said, things seem to be going Scott Walker's way. Does that mean Wisconsin will go Mitt Romney's way? Does that mean the nation will go Republicans' way come November? We'll try to figure it out.
All right, we'll see all that and much more on Real News from the Blaze coming up in just 60 minutes.
This is not going to be about politics. This is about principles. We're going to take it upon ourselves to be part of the solution.
We are going to restore history, restore our honor, restore his idea that character is what matters.
Let us not lose this battle because we sat down.
This is the Glenn Beck Program.
Hello, America, and welcome to the Glenn Beck Program and to GBTV, the network that you are building. Small businesses are the backbone of our economy, the backbone of our nation. An inventor, I think it was probably smaller than this one, but it was one guy who had an idea. Brought us the light bulb. It was an American. Americans have always been people that have thought out of the box. The entrepreneur does it not for gain, but because nobody else has done it. Gain is just kind of the reward at the end, but you are driven by something, and for everybody, it's different. My father and my grandfather were both small business owners. My grandfather had a bakery, but he wasn't really an artist. He was just a baker, and he worked very hard. My father looked at baked goods in a different way. I'm a little pudgy for a reason. My father knew how to make good food, but he also believed that it was an art. And when I was a kid, I watched my father create art in icing and everything else 6 days a week. At 8 years old, I'm working at our bakery in Mount Vernon, Washington. I watched my father's bakery slam into a wall. First, the mall came to town, and everybody could get cheap everything at the mall. We never went to the mall because it was almost like we were betraying our little small hometown. What I learned in that small hometown was the importance of hard work and responsibility, and to support small businesses in our community, because we knew everybody on our street. We shopped at the local hardware store. But Norris was the guy who owned the hardware store. I wore a sandwich sign, and my first entrepreneurial job was he was running for mayor. I suggested to him if he paid me money, I think I was about 10, I'd wear a sandwich sign and walk up and down the street for him. That's what I did. We went to see Star Wars at the Lincoln movie theater. It wasn't an AMC or a multiplex. It was one. And when that one wasn't showing the movie that we wanted to see or was showing the movie that we'd already seen, we'd go to the Lyric. It was small downtown America, the one that we've all come to love if you're about my age. Small business owners, however, now are the ones who employ more than 100 people. I didn't think that was small business until I started my small business. I'm like, really, 100 people? That's small business? How about the ones that employ 4? I never thought we'd make 100 employees. We now have 130 employees, and my goal is to employ about 1,000 people in the next 5 years. The government can't guarantee success in life, and neither can the small businessman. It is the effort that we put in, and a little bit of luck as well. There's been plenty of talk from the White House about how important small businesses are to our country's economic well-being. If you listen to the president, he's a fan of small business.
Small businesses have always been the engine of our economy, creating 65% of all new jobs over the past decade and a half, and they must be at the forefront of our recovery. That's why the Recovery Act was designed to help small businesses expand and create jobs. Instead of giving tax breaks to corporations that ship jobs overseas, we want to give tax breaks to small business owners who are creating jobs right here in America. Already, we've given small businesses 8 new tax cuts and have expanded lending to more than 60,000 small business owners. As part of health reform, 4 million small business owners could be eligible this year for a health care tax credit worth perhaps tens of thousands of dollars. Our economic plans also helped
Stop,
to
I
free
can't
up
take it
credit,
anymore. I can't take them anymore. I
supporting
really can't. Let me just ask the small business owners here real quick. How many of you got any of that lucrative cash coming your way since anybody here, a single soul, not a single tax break, anybody here got the tens of thousands of dollars because of Obamacare? Nothing. How many people are terrified about what Obamacare is going to mean to your business? How many people here are terrified by what this government is doing with more and more regulation? How many people here actually believe that instead of your taxes going down, as a small businessman, your tax is going to go up? Yeah. Yeah, Mr. President, you're full of crap, and everybody knows it. It all sounds good, but instead of finding ways to encourage small business, just make it easier for them to expand, get out of their way. But the exact opposite is happening. In 2009, Congress passed the Recovery Act. We just heard the president say it was designed to help small businesses. But since then, because of what you just saw, the number of new businesses are less than they were a year ago. They're now at the lowest point we have had. So if new businesses aren't taking off, who's creating all of the jobs? Only 2.5 million jobs were created in 2010. That doesn't keep up with the birth rate. You're seeing a pretty steady decline in the past decade, and small businesses can't get started without financing. Well, I mean, here's the problem. When it comes to lending, you're left behind as a small businessman. Look at 2009. Here's where Obama takes office. Then the big financial firms like Bear Stearns, they collapse. In 2009, lending drops. Then a year later, it starts climbing again. The banks have no trouble paying out loans to giant corporations. Look at this. Commercial and industrial. Small business, pretty flat line. How come the small businesses aren't getting loans? Why? All you're left with is big business in the end that are supported by an even bigger government. That's not going to fix our economy or jumpstart lending to entrepreneurs. But I believe the president is right about one thing. Watch.
Here in America, we rise and fall together. Our economy as a whole can't move ahead if small businesses and the middle class continue to fall behind. This country was built by dreamers.
It was. It was. Somebody who was willing to be an outcast, willing to be called a lunatic, willing to take horsehair and put it in a vacuum tube and try to light it up. It's always been somebody who had a harebrained idea. We have to encourage the entrepreneur to keep going after their dreams, and this president keeps promising more of the same, just under different names. He can call it whatever he wants, the Recovery Act, the Small Business Tax Cut Act, or his latest, to-do list for Congress, but it's not making a difference. There was a time, a long time ago, when government regulation actually acted as an incentive for businesses. Thomas Edison, for example. In the late 1870s, when Edison was working on the light bulb, local governments were thinking of ways to force electric lines underground. This idea actually encouraged Edison to design his electric system in a completely different way. With the lines underground, now the government regulation stifles innovation. Today, Apple's founder, the late Steve Jobs, told that to President Obama told him repeatedly, said, it's easier to start a business in China than it is in the U.S. Please. The same thing with Bill Gates. Regulations and unnecessary costs is what he said is happening in the United States. If the Obama administration was in office when Apple was created 35 years ago, the company would have never grown out of Jobs' garage. Wouldn't have happened. That's a fact. One of the themes lately of my program is deeds and not words. That comes from George Washington. We need to stop talking about things and start doing things. We were talking in the audience here just a minute ago about how we have to support each other, how we have to, as small business people, actually do the right thing because we are all we got. And if we fail as a nation. We fail. Who here wants to start? We're going to talk a little bit about some of the things that we're doing here at Mercury and some of the people here on the couch. But I just want to have an open conversation with everybody here on who wants to tell me the story of their small business and what you are facing right now. A challenge you're facing and a possible ray of sunshine. Anybody? Yes. Kirk.
Well, my business partners and I come from a background of military and law enforcement and traditional business. And between deployments, we talked about ways that we could sort of strengthen our position. We'd have something to come back to. We thought of ways to leverage that experience. So we started a security-related company. And we want to be able to bring to homes and businesses the type of experience that we've gained out on the street or in the theater of battle. And the challenge has been that so many businesses have cut back on their expansions that we have to work 3 or 4 times harder to get enough business to meet the goals that we had set going back to 2007 when we started. And finding qualified technicians that will meet our standards has been a very big challenge as well.
Isn't that strange that finding people to do the job, who's having a hard time finding good, qualified, hardworking people? You guys are. I mean, look, that's quite a bit. Mark, what is your business?
I do jalapeno jellies.
Now, I have to tell you something. A man who can succeed in today's environment making jalapeno jelly, you're a good man. You're having a hard time finding people to hire?
It's, I have a lot of people coming and applying for a job, but nobody wants to work really hard. And for me, challenge is to have people who wants to stay with me and work hard. I'm even teaching my children how to work hard. I bring my kids to work because I spend so many hours at work. And my son, for example, he works really good. But I tell him, Michael, now you know how to do it. You have to work faster and harder. And he always tells me, but Dad, I'm making everything with love. So
your son's a con artist.
But he's a good one.
Right, yeah, okay,
he's a good one. And my older one, who is currently on the mission, actually, he was working with me. And I also taught him how to work hard. And now he's in the mission in Canada and helping people in Canada. And people just rave how hardworking individual he is.
It's really hard to find. It might be different here in Texas, but it's hard to find hardworking people. I mean, as a guy who hires people, in our own firm, trying to find people who that are coming out, that are fresh, that understand, you got to bust your butt, is really difficult to find. And people who, how many people have experienced the attitude of, well, I'm not going to do that? People have had that problem. So how do you deal with it? Anybody? How do you turn this corner as a small business person? What do you do when you can't find them? Anybody?
Do it yourself.
Do it yourself. Yeah, go ahead.
And you really try to keep the ones that want the job. You try to encourage them to stay with you. I mean, that's a big thing. We employ a little over 50 people.
What do you do?
We own a commercial feed yard, and we feed about 30,000 cattle.
Okay.
But the people that want to work, we do everything in our means to keep them in our employment. We find so many people that want to come and work just for a little bit, or the hours are too long. Young people today aren't growing up the same way that my generation did with the work ethics.
Let's go to financing here. Who's had a hard time getting money from the banks right now? Anybody? Yes. You've had a hard time getting money from the banks?
Mm-hmm. I'm a video production company making more niche things like money for videos for high-end condominiums and virtual motion graphic billboards and advertisements and things. And when I was coming out of film school, I couldn't get any financial institution to come off of their capital. And I think uncertainty has a lot to do with that. And not to get off topic, I just want to chime in on that. The young people, everyone that I graduated film school with wanted to be the boss and be the director and thought they were going to be Steven Spielberg right out of the gate. and that's just not the case. And there's a lot of...
It never has been. Has that ever been the case for anybody? I mean, when I got out of school, I mean, I was working in the bakery when I was eight years old. By the time I was 13, I was in radio. I bought into my own bull crap by the time I was 20, and I thought I was just the greatest thing ever. You know what? I wasn't really successful until I was 35, 38. I mean, it stinks on ice for a long time. And I'm guessing for most of you, a lot of your life, because you're a small business person, still kind of stinks on ice. I mean, what's amazing is that we live in this society where a small business person, who's the last person to get paid? Yeah, you guys, right? You're the last. Whatever's left over is what you get. And it kills me that we're living in this society where the small businessman is being demonized. That you know, you're made to look like the fat cat. Well, I mean, who's taking all the risk? Who's the one that's up at night? I mean, how many people have friends that work for them? Yeah, how many people look at their employees as family? I mean, how many people here have laid awake at night or talked to their spouse in bed and said, "Good heavens, if this goes wrong, what are we going to do? How do we worry? I mean, we're going to worry about their kids. What are they going to do?" How many people have had that conversation with their spouse? Now, how is it we're the bad guys? How is it that we're the fat cats? How is it that we're not how is it we're the evil ones that have no compassion? I don't even understand America right now. How are you managing around the regulations? It's got to be better in Texas, because I came from New York. It couldn't get worse. Regulation problems? Anybody having regulation problems? Yes, Rick.
Yeah, I seem to see that almost every time I turn around, there's some new bureaucrat with a badge, you know, that's wants to get paid more. They're asking for more money, not to do any more work. They come into my business and they don't have to spend any more time, like, for example, health department. Okay, they come in, they look at a few items that I don't cook, I don't repackage. We just bring some product in and send it back out. Takes them 5 minutes to come in and make sure it's all on pallets right and everything. Well, all of a sudden, oh, you're doing more money? Okay, let's see what your rate is. Okay, they want to triple. This year, my health department permit got tripled because I was making more money, not because that they had to come in and do any more work. And it seems like that we just wasted a huge amount of energy and time keeping up with permits and fees and taxes, and now all these regulatory agencies are requiring you, like the EEOC and the TWC, they're all requiring you to keep up with certain records, and it's just gotten invasive, and it wastes so much of our time, and it wastes a lot of money. I'm constantly looking in my budget. I have 34 employees, and I'm constantly looking in my budget for more money for them. Because, I want them to have a better life. I want them to have opportunities and to be able to grow within my business. But it's hard because the profits keep eroding, because every time I turn around, there's another law or another rule or another regulation that's going to cost me money.
All right, let's just get it all out on the table here, because as a small business person, I have a lot to, excuse the language, I have a lot to bitch about. And healthcare is one of them. My business partner came to me and said, "Glenn, the one thing that will put us out of business is the cost of healthcare. It will kill us. We're the only ones still, we get our insurance in New York City. We're the only ones in New York State to carry the health insurance that we still have. No one else in New York covers it. We're the lone survivor on that, because we believe in doing the right thing. Now, that is costing us, my eyes bleed every time I see what it costs the company. And now we're going to get penalized because we're giving our employees too much health care. Anybody want to address that? Anybody else want to whine or bitch about anything? Because we're going to take a break in a second, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about solutions. So go ahead. Yes, Andrew.
I'm a physician. I own a single urgent care practice. And when it comes to regulation in medicine, I think that's one of the best illustrations of what the government has done to this country.
You're in for a nightmare. It hadn't even started.
Absolutely. It started just a couple years ago when they mandated electronic medical records. Most physicians, especially single practices, their practice is on paper. But someone has decided that this information has to be accessible by everyone in the country, if not the world. So now we are all mandated to go electronic. They start with incentives saying the government will help you, they'll pay for some of this, which all sounds great at first, that, well, yeah, if we have to do it, it's nice to have some reimbursement. But the stipulations, the rules, they don't even know all the rules. They make them up as they go. Each year, they say, okay, now we've come out with some more rules. If you want another piece of that small pie that they originally promised, then you have to jump through these
Is there
hoops.
anybody here, how many people here feel like they just can't even keep up with the rules that are being made? But we can't. We can't even keep up with them. Don't even know. Anybody else here a doctor? You're saying it, I'm saying it, and anybody else here a broadcaster? I mean, look, we all have different jobs, and we're all feeling it. I mean, I don't even know where these people get time to come up with all these rules. Had somebody else had their hand up. It's Craig. Go ahead.
Well, I was saying, I don't know about health care now, but my wife and I, we haven't had health care insurance since 2004 because when I lost a job in the construction business, we could no longer afford it. Well, we moved to Oklahoma and started our own business with the savings that we did have left, and we never went to a bank. We used our savings and started a business, and now we have two pretty successful businesses that I think we can turn on to our kids.
Good for you. Yes, back here.
I'm chiming in on him. I have a construction company, also commercial construction, and if you want to talk about an industry that's just killed, it's construction. And the only thing I can think is that all the laws that have been passed by the politicians up to this point in the last 4 or 5 years roughly has been nothing but wrecking the economy to the point where developers aren't willing to develop. They don't want to, banks aren't loaning, lending money. No one has any faith or confidence in the economy there's no incentives. And it is trickle down economics. I mean, these guys they buy a piece of land, they build it, they hire contractors, hire the subs, feed the material suppliers, they rent equipment, on, and it just goes down, but it's just a mess.
How many people want a dime from the government? Why? Go ahead, John.
Because it means we're taking money out of someone else's pocket, and we work for our money.
Anybody else?
We like the fruits of our own labor. We don't need someone else's tax dollars to support us.
Anybody else?
Too many strings attached.
Too many strings attached. Great one. Great one. Yes, Mark.
I was just going to say, I came from Poland in 1984 with the dream to open a business. And the reason I came
Wait. You were in Poland and you were thinking about jalapeno jelly?
No.
All right. That's a dream.
Actually, I went to pastry school, so I'm a professional pastry chef.
Really?
And I have a pastry shop in Logan.
Okay.
And we do sandwiches and pastries and some of your favorite things.
I'm in.
I know.
I'm with you.
But I started making jellies for the sandwiches, and that's what kind of took off.
Okay.
But I came to the United States with a dream to open the business, because in Poland we could not do that. And what scares me the most, and the fear I have, I see what's happening here, it's what happened in Poland. And all the people want to have so many things hand out to them from government, and I just don't like that. And it's we're losing our strength, we're losing our values.
We're losing our uniqueness.
We do.
I don't know about you guys, but I go to small towns. I hate them now. I used to love small towns because you could go into shops and they'd be different, and the people would be different, and the things would be different. You walk into shops now, it's like, have you ever been on Main Street in Disneyland? They're all different shops. You go to Main Street in Disney World, it's the same T-shirt at the beginning of the store as it is at the end of the street. It's just one long shop, and that's what our towns are becoming like. I don't need another Ann Taylor. I don't need another, Gap or another Old Navy. They're fine. They're great. But what happened to us to where the entrepreneur is in town? It's what makes us, our diversity gives us strength. And we're losing, as a nation, here we are talking about diversity. There's no diversity. If you don't go to college, you don't get a job. If you don't take finance, good luck. If you don't do it this way, good luck. If you don't get this right permit, good luck. If you aren't thinking about going into big business, good luck. That's craziness. We never survive that way. We never survive that way. Okay. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit about what we're personally doing, what we're asking you to do, and I want you to encourage. I see Babes. Oh, yes. Babes Fried Chicken is here, and the Vineyards are here, and I think what you guys do with your staff is remarkable. I'd like you to talk a little bit, each of you, a little bit about what makes you unique that might help an entrepreneur. Something that you can say, you know what, this is a good piece of information that I wish somebody would have told me. Back in just a second. America may have lost her way, but she hasn't lost her hope.
It's time for the news you're not getting anyplace else.
If I'm wrong, I've got some new skills and some extra food. If they're wrong, then good luck.
GBTV is the only network that would put me on it. Where you going?
For the past 3 years, Congress has failed to balance our government checkbook and pass a budget. Nobody here could get away with that in their business. You wouldn't be able to do that in your own house. Your wife or your husband would divorce you. That's craziness. Washington keeps spending our dollar into oblivion. You need to do something to protect your family's assets with gold. Now, find out if gold is right for you and your family. I don't know. It is for my family. Gold or silver is... it's a remarkable investment for as much as people have said, oh, heck, Glenn Beck, he's just pushing gold. That's crazy. Stock market since 2001 has gone up 25%. Gold since 2001 has gone up 350%. Who's the crazy one? Call the experts at Goldline. Call 800-757-GOLD, 800-757-GOLD or goldline.com.
Hi everyone, this is Amelia from FreedomWorks, here to invite you to a very special event. FreePAC is a national gathering of Americans interested in restoring freedom. This year's event will feature speeches from Glenn Beck, Dick Armey, Matt Kibbe, and many of the biggest names in the freedom movement. So go to freepac.com today to pre-register and help restore liberty in your community and across the nation.
Okay, so has anybody actually started saving for college yet?
Oh, not me.
No, you got time.
Oh, no, we actually started.
You have?
Really?
Sure. We figure you start saving a little now, or you'll borrow a lot later on.
Yeah, but how did you even know where to start?
Oh, I found out about the Gerber Life College Plan.
Call now for free information on the Gerber Life College Plan. It's easy.
It's pretty much worry-free.
Well, how could it be worry-free? What if something happens with the stock market?
No matter what happens, we get guaranteed safe growth.
So when she's ready for college, the money will be there.
And it doesn't take a lot of money to get started.
For as little as $10 a week, you can start saving for college and get guaranteed growth. Just call now.
Oh, it's a life insurance policy, too.
Oh, that's different.
And if she decides not to go to college, there's no penalty, so she can use the money for anything.
We've got to get started.
Yes, we do, because you're going to college.
Call 1-800-892-3073 for your free information. That's 1-800-892-3073.
Listen up, America!
The price of life insurance has gone down 60% over the last 15 years. Many Americans know they need it, and some that have life insurance know they don't have enough. How would your family get by without you? How are you planning for the uncertainties of life? Guarantee your family $200, $400, $500, $750,000 or more with a term life insurance policy that costs up to 3 times less than other competitors. For example, a healthy 40-year-old man can get a $250,000 term life insurance policy for $16 a month. Don't spend more than you have to on term life insurance. Find out how easy it is to protect the ones you love. The quote is free and there are no obligations. Listen up, America. Call now.
Call 800-488-5317. That's 800-488-5317.
Coming up on Real News, the historic presidential election in Egypt this week bears results. A runoff. Buck, what do we know?
And then there were two. There's a Muslim Brotherhood candidate and an old regime candidate squaring off for whoever's going to be president of the new Egypt. So we're going to talk about what this means.
All right, that's up next on Real News right after Glenn at 6 o'clock.
This is our economic plan. Smart investments in America's small businesses, America's clean energy industry, and America's middle class. Now, I can't tell you that this plan will bring back all the jobs we've lost and restore our economy to full strength overnight. The truth is, it took nearly a decade of failed economic policies to create this mess, and it will take years to fully repair the damage. But I'm confident that we are finally headed in the right direction.
We're just talking here as a bunch of small business owners, and I want to introduce a few people. First, Dan and Dale Clutie. You're from Nebraska.
Correct.
Tell me about your business.
Well, we're a commercial cattle feeding business.
Mm-hmm.
We feed about 30,000 cattle. Mm-hmm. What we're starting now is trying to go from conception to plate through genetics, feeding, and everything, with a product that we put the label Pure Promise on it. It's never had any antibiotics, growth promotants, feed additives. It's natural all the way through.
Right.
And this company that we're working with you on is our third company. And the reason I wanted to start it a year and a half ago is I now have 8 family members working. Of the 50 employees we have, we've got a good toehold on our family. And we have 2 different families that work with us, but we're trying to produce a high-quality, high-end steak and hamburgers.
Right. And it's not just, this is the secret that I think Americans need to understand. When you support your local business, it's not just Dale.
No.
It's all kinds of American businesses. Kristen, tell me about your business.
Our company is called Softwater Soapworks. We're based out of Tampa, Florida, and we make handmade soaps and bath and body products. And
it started actually with Grandma's soap, didn't it?
It did. My husband's great-grandmother, he remembered using a bar that she had made when he was young, and picked it up as a hobby, and it's something that we wanted to find something that we both love to do and that we could do together, really, so we could see each other, because we both had jobs that we really never saw each other.
This looks like really yummy cheese, actually. This was in my house. I'd probably put it on a cracker.
It
It'd be
doesn't
very
smell like
disappointing.
cheese.
Yes, I know. And how long have you been in business?
We started in 2008, and really just in the last year and a half have really started to gain a lot of traction. We're conservatives in a very hippie kind of industry, so, nothing smells like incense.
So you're alone.
We are.
Yeah, you're alone. Yeah, I know
We
that.
are.
I know that feeling. Tell me about your business.
I have a children's clothing line called Hannah Kate, and we have trunk shows all over the United States. I started in 2000 and have 15 employees, and I just have to say, when you were talking earlier about having a hard time finding people who work hard, I, of course, have had that problem, but I have the opposite problem, that I have the most amazing just staff of women that work with me, and I pinch myself all the time. I can't believe that how much they care about our customers. And
I will tell you that, you know, because we just started a clothing line, 1791, and it is, there are people that are starving to make American goods now. I mean, people, really talented people, but you haven't been able to make them because they're way too expensive. You know, if you take them, if you make something, you know, you can't compete against China, especially if you're going into a regular store. Where have you been selling these before?
well, with Hannah Kate, we sell through trunk shows.
Okay.
And then we've had an online business that was non-custom, that I just designed it and people just bought it exactly the way it, you know, it is. But at the trunk shows, they can totally customize it. And then I started a wholesale line this past year under a different name.
Okay.
So,
Brad, tell me about your business.
We make Tattler reusable canning lids, which is, in the world of home food preservation, that's pretty unique. I refer to it as the indoor plumbing of canning, because when you tell people that you've got reusable canning lids, they look at you, I'm sure, the same way people did when indoor plumbing was introduced. It's unheard of. I mean,
yeah, no, my grandmother would, I bet my grandma wouldn't have used these. My grandmother would say, we'll all die. It'll all be poisoned to death.
We get that too.
Yeah, I bet.
You know, and the benefit now, over 35 years ago when my father designed these, is we can communicate with people a lot better, and we can talk to them about the inherent differences. People are used to metal lids, and that's all they've ever known. And this is unique. We're a one-trick pony, but it's a cool trick.
Okay. All right. I brought you guys in because you're part of the marketplace at markdown.com. And I brought you guys in because the marketplace, the idea behind it is that, for instance, if I wanted to make jeans, because I've grown to hate Levi's. I love Levi's. I've worn Levi's my whole life. Until they said just recently they're going to be the progressive uniform for America, and that they were also using Occupy Wall Street footage in their commercials. I'm offended by that. That's not America. And you've been making your clothes in China for the last 20 years. But how do you compete? How do you do it? If you have to make it here in America, you have to have another storefront. Somebody who makes a jean cannot have a storefront and put it in the store unless those jeans are going to be $250. That's the only way you can make them here in America. But you can make things in America high quality if you don't have the overhead. How many people are worried about advertising, just getting the word out about your business, right? Okay, so the idea behind Markdown is, I need advertisers, you need customers. Okay. Spit yourself out of the system has been my motto for a while now. How about if because I already have all the inventory because I'm a network. How about if I carry all the inventory, you take no risk, I make sure that you're decent to that it's good quality, that you're decent to your customers, and we do a handshake deal. You come on. If it's successful, you sell something, you give me a small percentage. That's how I get paid. You take everything else. I'm carrying all your advertising. I'm carrying everything. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't, we tried. You're not out anything. I'm out some advertising time, but that's it. And we do a deal on a handshake. We look each other in the eye and say, Brent, I respect you. I like your product. I think that's great. I think people should see your product. I think that's wonderful. I'd like to put you in the marketplace. And you know what? Someday, if you get to be big, don't forget your values and who built you. And it's not us, it's the American people. Don't forget the American people. And also, if you want to advertise on one of our other things or you pay for it, we'd welcome you there. But if not, no big deal. Handshake. How many people want to do a deal on a handshake now? That's the way we're supposed to be. So we have huge plans, and we need good entrepreneurs that can make something that you can say, I'll tell you something right now. Not only is my product better than you can get at Bed Bath, and whatever. Not only better than that, it's made in America, and it's no more expensive, and it's better. I would go shop there. And I think Americans would do that. We have to start supporting each other. The American people have to realize we've got to create jobs, and you guys are the ones who do it. So I have to buy your soap. I have to buy your soap. I have to buy your steak because you guys are the ones creating the jobs. Yes?
Plus, the money that is used will be used in our economy and not sent overseas. And that's where my line of work comes in, because it trickles down. My clients are like the doctor over there. My clients need to go paperless, and I'm trying to keep them up with all the HIPAA laws and everything, because I'm in the computer industry. You know, we do service and stuff. So it's that trickle, you know, that stays in the economy. If our neighbors can get work and get jobs, then they can spend their money on my services, or maybe buy the extra bar of soap, and not tend to cut back and stuff. We have a lot of people right now just worried about where their next meal's going to come from, how they're going to pay the rent next week or next month. And it comes down to they can't sell their services because the people that are programmed to put, you know, the square holes in the square pegs, the manufacturing, not everybody can be a doctor here. Not everybody can be, you know, some type of inventor, but
there's nothing wrong with that.
There is nothing wrong with it, but we need to have the jobs so that those people who can put things together and manufacture things can get work, and they are looking for it.
I tell you, I'm all over the country. Ohio is tragically sad. Tragically sad. You're driving by these big, huge plants that used to do something, and all of that skilled labor is just all gone, and the city is rotting from the inside. You go to Rochester, New York, and you look at Kodak. I mean, boy, you want to talk about a stupid move. No, we'll be the film people. Let somebody else do the digital stuff. Okay. Stupid move. But now you look at that town, all that talent, all of those people, all of that infrastructure just rotting. And what are we going to do? We're not going to get it back by another stimulus package. Craig.
Well, I think this country, a portion of this country, is craving for quality. We've had so much junk for so many years. My dad used to always tell me when I was young, and this was after World War II, that save up your money and buy the best that you can afford, buy the quality. And that was the time when we was getting all the stuff from Japan. And at that time, Japan was China, you know, for us. So I think your idea is great. If you can get a quality item at a comparable cost, I think people will jump.
I was teaching Sunday. I teach Sunday school. I teach the 15-year-olds at church. We were going over the 10 Commandments. And first commandment is what? Thou shalt not have any other God before me. Got it? Commitment. That's God saying, commit to me. Commit. The second one is you're not going to make a false idol. What is that? That's, I value something authentic. Value the genuine item. Those two things are the secret to our comeback. Not only with God, we got to do that with God, but that's also what Americans are craving. We are made in His image. We feel the same way. We want something quality, and we want somebody who will commit to us. I'm so sick of giving my money to people who are not committed to America. Can we just not? Can I just not give my money to somebody who's trying to destroy us or trying to ship my job or don't care? They only care about the world market? Yes, Jamie.
In this country, what you're talking about, we incentivize bad behavior, you know, and we punish good behavior, people that are productive. One of the things I get sick about is hearing people keep talking about jobs, jobs, jobs. The government can create jobs. They cannot be productive. The jobs the government creates just adds another layer of barnacles on our ship of state and sucks it away from the productive sector. And what we need to do is reward productivity. Along that lines, we have created, on a positive note, we've created the next generation walking cane, the Flex Stick. I brought one here. It's the most stable, comfortable walking cane ever made. And so we're trying to get the word out. That's what we struggle with, is getting the word out. One of the things that's going on, in fact, tomorrow or last Wednesday, depending on when you're watching the show, is the Tech Fort Worth Impact Awards. And I was actually working out with a guy in Grapevine back in early March, and he said, "Hey, did you apply for the Impact Awards?" I went, "What's the Impact Awards?" And so he told me about it. I went home that night and applied, and here I am.
Congratulations.
And so the winner gets announced tomorrow, and we made the top 3 finalists. But what the Tech Fort Worth is, it's a incubator that helps people with good ideas. It helps them get started, and there's resources out there for those kind of people. And it's really exciting to see the other people that are in here. In fact, I'll give this to you. Maybe you can send
the idea is we'll come back in a second. We have to take a break. The idea of this show and the marketplace and everything, the same thing with the award, is we have to be visible to inspire other people. We have to start building inside of ourselves, hey, there are other people out there doing this, and we're not alone. And we may be fighting an uphill battle, but we're fighting together. That's what we really need in America. Back in just a second. Paul, I'm going to come to you.
Like you, I would do anything to protect my family. That's why I have food insurance, the emergency food supply that guarantees my family's most basic needs, safe and nutritious food. These high-quality freeze-dried meals last up to 25 years and are compact, affordable, and delicious. Start with a 2-week supply or plan for several months, whatever's right for you. Provide security for your family. Order food insurance today.
Is your nonstick pan a sticking nightmare? Don't live in fear. The solution is here with Organic Kitchenware, the new nonstick cookware with revolutionary green ceramic coating. Now you can saute or fry with little or no grease or fat. Foods never stick, so you never scrub. Look how with just water, burnt fudge cleans up in a breeze. Don't worry about eggs sticking to the pan. They'll slide right out. Order your 10-inch Organic fry pan right now for just $19.99. If it ever dulls or damages, we'll replace it. It's the pan that slips and slides for life. But we're still not done. Call or click right this minute and you can double your order. You get 2 Organic 10-inch fry pans with recipe books and a lifetime warranty. A whopping $220 value, all yours for $19.99. And when you call, find out about free shipping.
Call 1-800-603-7571. But hurry, we're giving away a special offer on a second Organic pan with 2 days' orders. So call 1-800-603-7571 and find out about free shipping. That's 1-800-603-7571. Call now.
Are you a homeowner 62 or older? Are you looking to access cash from your home or eliminate your monthly mortgage payment? How about both? Then call the number on your screen. With a reverse mortgage, there are no monthly mortgage payments. You will still own your home and you will have many options on how to receive your cash. Call now. It's time to get all the facts, and Reverse Mortgage Solutions is here to help.
Call 855-200-1039. That's 855-200-1039.
Talking small business, let me go to Emily.
I'm the business manager for Hannah Kate, and I just wanted to thank you for what you've done for us as a small business, because you just made the comment about not knowing where to put your dollars of who you could trust. And because of what you've done and your vetting and you're looking at these companies, it allows us to be able to confidently shop from the people who be on the marketplace, which makes us feel good about the dollars that we're spending.
It's really, I mean, we don't all have to agree on everything, but we just have to know that we're not trying to stab each other in the back, that we are a community. How many people here have some money that they would invest into their company, they would hire more, they would expand, or they'd take a little more risk if you believed that the government was stable and not going to change everything, turn everything upside down? Look at that, America. You want to know why jobs are not being created? Because you're afraid to do anything, because they'll change the rules on you. That's our biggest problem. I want to talk to Paul Vineyard. He is the owner of a place that I found here in Texas that I just love. It's Babe's Fried Chicken, and I go there because there's something different. It's not just the chicken; it's really great and the best cream corn on the planet. But there's something different. It's authentic. It's, no offense, but it's crappy tables. I mean, it's just, what it is. I mean, it's just, it's like, like I had at my, you didn't go someplace and buy all matching stuff. And the people are real. You do something, however, that I don't think I've ever heard of any business owner ever doing with your employees.
Glenn, we recognized once we achieved a certain level of success that really the young people that work for us are our mission. And we set out to see what can we deliver to them other than the money that they make. And so we challenged all of our top people to develop a meeting, an educational meeting that's given to every employee. I give one on integrity, honesty, character, and self-discipline with a little bit of a tribute to the importance of the Lord in my life. Joel discusses our values and our visions. I have a brother, Joe, that teaches the Constitution of the United States. Tiffany teaches them.
I think this is illegal. Wow. I think this is illegal. In most states, I'll bet you that's illegal.
It may be. I don't
know.
We haven't been caught so far. Tiffany teaches some life skills like doing your hair right and makeup and preparing yourself for a job. And the delivery of these, they don't get up and come thank you all the time. Some of them do. We also have given all of them 90 minutes in heaven. Heaven is for real. We gave all the employees a Bible this last Christmas. But we just searched to see what we can do. This group is about 900 teenage girls, and there's another 300 or 400 employees beyond them. And so we see that as our mission, is to see how much we can change their lives, and they look back on their time with Babes or Bubba's or Sweetie Pies as being a change in their life, where their life actually changed.
Just by the names of your restaurants, there's no way you'd survive in the North. It's a remarkable thing. How many people have been to Babes? Yeah, see. I mean, maybe it's just me because I'm coming from up north, but the hokey pokey, when it is just, it's genuine. When the kids get up and do the hokey pokey on Friday and Saturday nights, there's no pomp and circumstances, no special lighting or anything else. It's just simple. I think that's what we're craving as a nation. Just simple goodness, authentic stuff, decency to one another. Back in just a second. You have to get a cracker or I'll eat it right out of it. This is the jalapeno jelly, mango. This is wicked good. Let me tell you about food insurance, our sponsor, in case you need, food to, because look, our grandparents, grandma, I mean, this is like grandmas with lightning. They used to can food. I'm not canning food. Reusable lid guy, sorry. I'm not canning food. But a lot of people still do. If that's what you can do, great. But may I please ask you to listen to the ghost of your grandparents and prepare. Because tough time is, they're coming. Whether it's now, in a year from now, 5 years from now, it will come. Be a blessing to somebody else. We're living in uncertain times. Don't be worried about that. Take that monkey off your back. Find out if food storage is right with food insurance for you. It is for my family. The number is 866-9-GOT-FOOD, 866-9-GOT-FOOD, or just go to foodinsurance.com. That's foodinsurance.com. Back in a minute.
The TRS Files, True Tax Resolution Stories.
My name is Gibb, and I am not an actor. As a result of my dealings with Tax Resolution Service, my tax burden to the IRS went from more than $35,000 to zero.
If you owe the IRS over $20,000 or more in back taxes, have unfiled returns, or are under audit, call Tax Resolution Services now, 888-7804-TAX, or visit taxresolution.com/GBTV.
It's an unpredictable world. Disaster can strike at any time. That's why Stove in a Can should always be part of your emergency survival plan. With power out and gas lines down, Stove in a Can cooks your food and rapidly boils water. Portable, safe, and easy to use. With an all-natural, waterproof fuel source you can store indefinitely. Say goodbye to dangerous propane, lighter fluid, and gas. Don't wait until it's too late. Stock up today and protect your family. Special bundle offers available at stoveinacan.com.
Hello, friend. I'm Pat Boone. Are you dreaming of an ideal retirement? Well, if you're 62 or older, there's a smart and easy way to get the money to make it happen. A reverse mortgage from my friends at Security One Lending, a national leader in reverse mortgages. They can help you turn the equity in your home into tax-free cash. Call to get this free, no-obligation information kit, which includes an educational video and the top 10 things to know about reverse mortgages. Why don't you call now?
Attention those on Medicare with diabetes. You may be eligible for an upgraded meter.
If you're tired of stabbing your fingertips to test your blood glucose, we have news that could change your life. If you're on Medicare with diabetes, then you need to know there's an alternative method for checking your blood glucose every day. You don't need to stab your fingertips anymore. The Embrace meter from Diabetes Care Club is easier to use and nearly painless. And the best news is that Diabetes Care Club would love to send you one of these meters. This method hurts less, and because you can see and hear your results, it may be easier to understand.
Your blood glucose reading is 89.
Call now to find out why. Nearly 250,000 patients have joined Diabetes Care Club. Membership is free, so is the call.
Call 1-800-213-7027.
Talk to Diabetes Care Club. You'll be glad you did.
I happen to be a guy who believes what I say, unfortunately, because a lot of the things that I say are spooky. I believe we are headed towards tough times. You know, that food insurance commercial I just did, I believe in that. We have to be a blessing to one another. We have to be able to help each other. But I also, on the upside, believe we're going to make it if we don't lose the essence of who we are, if we don't lose the genuine goodness of America, if we don't lose our entrepreneurial spirit. On June, Tiffany, when is it? June 13th? June 13th, and that week we're doing a charity fundraiser. It is the Lemonade Bake Sale Hug-a-thon, all the things the government tells us we can't do anymore. I'm asking you, not just for the raising of the money for charity, but also I want you to take your kids and I want you to help them start a lemonade stand. Even Ruth Bader Ginsburg started at a lemonade stand. She made one when she was a child. They're now telling us we can't do it. It is an American tradition, and it is the first time that your children say, hey, wait a minute, I can do something on my own and earn my own money. It's important that we do that. Bake sales, they're there so we don't have to ask somebody else for charity. We all just got together and you made a cake and I made a cake and then we just bought each other's cake. And what happened? We did it, we got together and we helped charity. Please don't let these traditions fall. We're going to be here in Dallas at Babes. And we're going to be doing our own bake sale that day, but we invite you to go to glennbeck.com/lemonade and sign up. Tell us where you're going to be with your kids. And if you happen to see a lemonade stand that week, I ask that you would stop by and buy a glass of lemonade for charity and to teach the kids that, yeah, you can earn your money. All you have to do is get off your butt and do something. Thank you guys for coming in. Thank you for watching. We'll see you Monday from Dallas. Good night, America. Who wants some jelly?
Breaking news tonight. We've got real news. This just in.
Real news from the Blaze.
Welcome, everybody, to Real News from The Blaze. After 2 days of voting this week, the results of Egypt's historic presidential election are in. The Muslim Brotherhood-backed Mohamed Morsi and former Egyptian Prime Minister Ahmed Shafiq took the largest share of votes and are now set to face off next month in a runoff election. The showdown is promising to be a polarizing one, as the two contenders are virtual opposites in their politics. Buck Sexton, who is left and what do we know about him?
Well, of the 12 candidates that were initially in this, or 14, we have 2 left, and they are basically the opposite ends of the spectrum in Egyptian politics. So we're going to break down who these guys are before we talk about where this is going. So going to go over to the board. We have Ahmad Shafiq. Where are you, Ahmad? There we go. Well, Mohamed Morsi. We'll do him first. Oh, no, we'll do Ahmad Shafiq first. So here we go. 70 years old, born in Cairo. And here's the thing about this guy. He's a former regime guy. So if you're somebody in Egypt who's been thinking to yourself, I'm a little bit uneasy with this whole takeover, or more than 50%, I should say, of parliament by the Muslim Brotherhood, maybe you're leaning towards this guy. If you're a Christian, if you're one of the Coptic Christians that make up 10% of Egypt, maybe you're leaning towards Ahmed Shafiq. If you are a religious minority, if you're a liberal, those liberals that were running around in Tahrir Square that apparently got this whole movement started, this may in fact be your guy. He is taking less of a hard line on Israel. He clearly represents sort of an old Antian regime stability, and that's how he's positioning himself. He's basically saying, look, the other guys want to Islamize this country, and I think underneath that there's an undercurrent of perhaps they don't even want a second round of presidential elections. Understated, not said, but I think that's always there. His slogan is deeds, not words. So he's a guy who says that we're going to actually provide. Egypt's economy is in the doldrums right now. Security has been deteriorating. There have been a lot of protests, but there's also more crime they've seen in a long time. So this is a guy who, as a former Air Force officer, as a former prime minister, he may be in a position to say, look, I can get things done. I am the stability candidate. And going forward, I'm going to be the guy who's going to make the smartest decisions for us vis-a-vis other countries. So let's go on to the next of our 2 candidates here, Mohamed Morsi. Now, it's been interesting because Morsi is one of 2 people who rose to prominence in this race, and he became the Muslim Brotherhood candidate. He is, in fact, the chairman of the Freedom and Justice Party in Egypt, also born in Egypt. And he says that the Renaissance, the will of the, he says Renaissance, the will of the people. That's his slogan. Now, what's interesting about Morsi is that he was initially thought to be less likely of a candidate in early polling than Abul Fattah. Now, Fattah is somebody who has a long-standing Muslim Brotherhood pedigree, but he started to make overtures to the Christian population, to the liberals, and started to say that I'm not going to Islamize the entire country to the extent that others are. Well, that didn't work for him, because this guy, the preferred candidate of the Muslim Brotherhood, who, by the way, has taken a very hard line in his rhetoric on the treaty with Israel and on Israel in general, and who says that the Muslim Brotherhood slogan will be enacted and Sharia law is, in fact, going to be the law of the land, this is a guy that's the other option. So I think what we've seen here is a binary choice for us in every sense. You have 2 candidates representing opposite ends of the spectrum here. And one can really be described as, I think, the revolution candidate, being Morsi, the Muslim Brotherhood option on the table. And the other, Shafiq, is really the counter-revolution candidate. He seems like the person you vote for in Egypt if you are a little afraid of what the Muslim Brotherhood might do. If you don't think the Brotherhood, since it took a majority stake of the parliament, is doing a good job so far. And if you worry that a Muslim Brotherhood dominated, or I should say, Islamist dominated because the Muslim Brotherhood works alongside the Noor Party, the Salafist, the even more Islamic party, gets a Muslim Brotherhood president, and the constitution is then being decided. What is the future of Egypt? I think if you're a religious minority, if you're a liberal, if you're somebody who is concerned about women's rights in that country, it's very dark. And so this is where we are.
I have a question for you, Buck. Before we move on to comparing Shafiq and Morsi, I'm surprised by one of the things. You talked about how Morsi came in late to kind of replace the Islamist vote that Fatou we thought had. And you and I were talking earlier, we thought Fatou and this guy named Amir Moussa, 4 days ago, we thought those were the leaders in the clubhouse.
And they really represent sort of very similar candidates in a lot of ways.
Right.
Amr Moussa, former foreign minister under Mubarak.
Right.
So he has that same previous regime flavor, if you will.
What happened with Moussa? How was Shafiq able to come in late and replace Moussa? He wasn't even on our chart. I saw we just put up a chart. He didn't even make the top 4.
I think that the fact is that right now stability and security are issues that the Egyptian population are raising as very important alongside the economy. But stability and security, you don't want shops being destroyed or burnt down, and more than you can even think about how they're doing. So as a former military candidate, as a guy associated with the military, which, by the way, still holds a prominent role in Egypt, we didn't get into it there, but, they're sort of the guarantors of this whole process. I think that he was able to sort of get that stability vote. Shafiq, able to get that stability vote, more than a guy who was a foreign minister, which is sort of more of a wheeling and dealing guy. Right. And on the Fatou side, I think that the Muslim Brotherhood, which has the most sophisticated political apparatus in Egypt, we all know that, that's been established for a long time, they probably said, oh, so you're the guy who we didn't want to run a candidate, and then you decided to leave the Muslim Brotherhood so you could run as a presidential candidate, and then you started making overtures about how you're not going to be as hard line as the rest of us? Well, we've got something in store for you. I would think that's how this went down.
Right.
So can I ask, what does this say about the Egyptian populace that they chose these two, it seems, very different candidates? Does this show that there's really a divide among Egyptians in terms of what they want out of this new revolution?
I'm going to pass the ball to Gordon.
Yeah, I mean, what happened is the people in Tahrir Square wanted democracy, and they're now learning how democracy works. And this is a really very interesting dynamic when you think about how all of this is occurring, because it is surprising, it is volatile, and, we're going to end up, I think, with a very surprising result.
So could I ask, should we cheer that we don't have just two shades of Islamic radicalism, that we really are seeing that the Egyptian people are trying to make a choice?
Yeah, I think that we should cheer that we've got a process going, which is really democracy. And democracy is process. It's not an outcome. And as long as this process continues, it's going to be okay. Now, it may turn out people we don't like. So, for instance, you may have Morsi becoming the next president. But on the other hand, these guys have got to bargain and coalition build. And this is really a very important part of the way, governments are formed.
I think that the issue would be, you would hope that in governing, let's say that Morsi gets it, and so then you have majority stake again, Islamist parliament, and then you have a Muslim Brotherhood member in the presidency forging a constitution. I think you would hope that then there would be a move towards moderation. But you always have the possibility, and I think this is the concern.
In rebellion to that, you're saying? Or that those two groups together would move towards
those two groups would be... No, I'm saying the hope, Will. I'm not saying
right,
we're getting to what I think is going to happen next. We would hope that they would basically try to some degree, co-opt, and good governance would force you to be somewhat moderate. You have to be the president and the parliament for all Egyptians. You'd like to think that would happen. The problem comes in, I think, when the reality sets in that you have now an Islamist in charge of basically the entire government, minus the military,
right,
and things aren't going well. What happens then? I think the problem at that point could be that you start to look for scapegoats, you start to blame other people, you start to look at Israel and say, well, let's start to sort of, pull that chain a little bit, let's start to rattle that cage, and that's where I think the concern could be. Now look, we don't know who's going to win yet, but I'm just saying going forward, you have that as a major concern.
I don't understand the point of some of these political parties in the Middle East, in Muslim countries, constantly being anti-Israel. I just, when I say that, I mean, what is the benefit of being anti-Israel? Other than the rhetoric of it, other than playing to the forces that want an Islamic, theocracy or an Islamic parliament, or, to follow the lines of the Muslim Brotherhood. Being anti-Israel is not getting them anywhere.
For a long time, it was...
As a nation, I mean.
It was considered common knowledge based on all the polling, even pre-September 11th, by the way, that Egypt and Saudi Arabia when you're talking about the Arab street. We're among the most anti-American states that there are in the Muslim world.
And where's that gotten them?
Well, but that may or may not. The point being, though, that it's still considered good politics to be anti-American. It's still considered good politics to be anti-Israeli. You're rabble-rousing. You're getting the street upset.
Don't you think some of the people and some of the candidates are saying, okay, look, we get the political, but this is not getting our country anywhere. Our president is always telling them that they feel that they're left behind. Well, not being able to trade with other people and have peaceful relations with other people is part of that problem.
I think you're talking about governing, and that's kind of the issue we hit on a second ago, which is when they have to actually govern. When you are the government, then do you have to bring results, or can you rely on this rhetoric, this, oh, Israel is our problem, Israel is what's causing all these issues?
You think the United States looks at this right now and says, you know what, we've got two options here it looks like this could turn out with the Islamists or the military guy, Shafiq. Do you think we're looking at this at the highest levels of power going, let's see what we can do to make sure Shafiq is in office?
No comment.
Yeah, I actually don't think that we're doing that much right now, just from all outward indications. But, you know, I also think that, you know, even if you get the worst outcome from what many perspectives in this country would be, which is you get the Muslim Brotherhood guy, at least you have the military really being a force for stability in society. Also, you've got the people in the streets. And the Muslim Brotherhood, no matter what they want to do, realize that they cannot go too far because they got these two forces in society that will hold them back.
There is always the possibility that if the Muslim, and I agree, the fact that there is a process here that people seem to, look, there were 50 million eligible voters and about 50% of them turned out, which I think is pretty close to U.S. presidential election numbers, isn't it? Anyway, about 50% of the Egyptian people that could have voted. So the process in and of itself is a good thing, is a harbinger, I think, of possibly good things to come. But that's assuming the Brotherhood here has good intentions. That's assuming that once they write the Constitution, it doesn't start to look more like this is a consolidation. They won't allow other parties to do the things they need to do to be in opposition. They haven't. The Muslim Brotherhood has been in opposition now for decades. They have not yet been in a position where they were saying somebody else could be in opposition, and I think that's where you could see problems.
So can I ask, have we learned anything, for example, from the election of Hamas in Gaza that was radical terrorist organization? Now they actually have to govern, they have to deliver social services. Has that moderated them ideologically? Has it made them less, what is the word I'm looking for, you know, against Israel, less antagonistic towards Israel?
No, it hasn't. And, you know, it's always tough when you look at these analogies because that's a pretty, it's a different situation in Gaza than it is in Egypt by a pretty substantial margin. But I think that, again, if they have to govern, they're going to be held to account in a way that will hopefully push them in a direction that is not quite as extreme as some of the rhetoric we've been seeing in the election so far.
Still a question how much this even matters, right? Yeah. What power does the president have? The Constitution is not
Well, if the president doesn't have a lot of power,
right,
you would assume the parliament would have a lot of power. If that's not the case, then you would assume the military has a lot of power. And then it starts to look like, what was this whole revolution about again? Because Mubarak and the military used to run this country.
Right.
All right. Well, we will see what comes. The recall race in Wisconsin is down to the wire, and new polling suggests that Governor Scott Walker will likely keep his office. So will GOP momentum in a traditionally blue state spell trouble for President Obama come November? We'll ask that question and find out after the break.
In 2000, the U.S. national debt was $5.6 trillion, and gold was $272 an ounce. By 2010, the U.S. debt was $13.5 trillion. Gold had risen to $1,421. Today, our government is projecting over $20 trillion of debt in the year 2016. Isn't it time you own gold? You can't control federal spending, but you can control where you put your investment dollars. Goldline has safely delivered billions of dollars in gold to its clients for over 50 years. Diversifying with gold is a smart strategy, and it's easy to get started. Call Goldline and get your free investor kit. Be sure to ask about our price guarantee program. Use your credit card for safety and convenience, and enjoy free shipping. Call Goldline now and buy gold with confidence. Get started today with Goldline.
It started with restoring honor,
I have a new dream.
then restoring courage,
That spirit lives within each and every one of us.
now it's time to restore love. Dallas, Texas, July 28th.
Unions in Wisconsin are pretty angry at the Democratic National Committee for their late entry into the recall race. They're already saying that the lack of support from the national team early on may be what keeps Governor Scott Walker in the state's executive chair. Well, last night we told you about the new polls in Wisconsin that show the Republican governor is likely to survive his recall election. The race is being closely watched in Washington, D.C. and around the country, and it's being seen by some as a potential preview of the presidential election in November. Will Kane, lay this out for us.
Well, you mentioned a lot of it right there. We're 10 days to go. The recall election is on June 5th. Most polls suggest right now that Scott Walker is up over Mayor Tom Barrett by at least 5 points. We have one poll we can show you where Governor Walker right now is up over Tom Barrett by 8 points, 50 to 42. Now, this fact, and the fact that most polls reflect that Walker is leading, has put the Democratic Party pretty at odds with itself, or with the union element of its party. The unions suggest that the DNC, the Democratic Party, and President Obama have all been late to no entries in their game, in their recall election. In fact, we have a quote from the International Association of Firefighters, Harold Schittberger. I think I've mispronounced that, and then that's not intentional. Something like that. That he is saying he's wished they'd put a cash investment.
Harold, we're very sorry if that's the case.
And viewers. He wished the DNC would have come in and put a cash investment into the election. Now, the DNC has stepped in late in the game. They put in $1 million over the last couple of days. Debbie Wasserman Schultz is going to show up in Wisconsin over the next week. But one person that has been particularly silent they're upset about is President Obama. He did come out and have a written endorsement of Mayor Tom Barrett when he first won the Democratic primary, but he's been particularly silent since then. So that leads us to this. What does Wisconsin's recall vote tell us about November? What does it tell us about Mitt Romney versus Barack Obama in Wisconsin, a state that has been pretty reliably blue for a long time? And more than that, what does it tell us about the Democratic Party's message and the resonance of that message come November? I'm going to leave that up to you guys.
I think one of the things that you're seeing in Wisconsin is people quietly like some of the reforms that Scott Walker made. If you look at public sector unions versus private sector unions, when you pay your property taxes, you can't play class warfare with property taxes the way you can with income taxes or luxury taxes. So most local public sector union workers are paid directly from county, township property taxes. When you put caps on those things, when you sort of break that ability to ram in pay increases for local government workers, everybody pays property taxes similarly. Public sector unions are different than private sector unions. When people feel like their property taxes are going up and these guys are pulling that money in a bad economy, there's really kind of no way out of that. It's not like, well, we're just going to tax the rich guy this time, or well, we're just going to tax luxury items this time. That a lot of these private sector union members that might support Democratic policies felt the pinch in their property taxes for their public sector workers. And nobody wants to starve cops or firefighters or teachers. But I think that quietly a lot of people like some of these reforms in Wisconsin.
And Walker's reforms, of course, exempted firefighters and cops.
Oh, yeah, that too.
Right.
Oh, yeah, right.
We're throwing in there.
He sort of separated some of the public sector workers that, a lot of people feel like public sector workers have bloated paychecks.
I think this is fascinating. Marquette University did this poll throughout the recall process, and they asked voters during the Democratic primary, what's the most important issue to you? Why do you want Governor Walker recalled? And it showed that 46% of the Democratic primary voters said because they wanted to create new jobs. That was #1 issue for them. But as you went down the list, 25% just get rid of Scott Walker, 14% reduce political divisions in the state. And coming in below all of those issues, at 12% of voters, they said they wanted to recall Scott Walker to restore collective bargaining rights. If I had asked you before I put out that poll, why are we having a recall in Wisconsin, what would the answer have been?
collective bargaining.
But that's what I just
would
said.
have been about collective bargaining rights.
People like those reforms.
I think that goes to the message that they're using in the recall election. I think that they want to make it seem like they're running. Remember when we talked about this, we set up that for them to get this recall in motion, they basically started this the moment that Walker took office, really. This was from the get-go. They didn't wait to see what this did to the state of Wisconsin. They didn't wait to see if this actually would benefit their communities and what this did up. They wanted this guy out. Who wanted him out? People that were wanting to keep collective bargaining in. Right. But as a means to get him out, that's not as effective messaging as we want jobs, we want, these sort of broad ideas that you can rally people around. It's actually very community organizer-esque to focus on the mass mobilization politically and not to go to the core issue for what got you there in the first place.
But doesn't this suggest that this recall is really a nullification election, that this is about one side didn't win, they didn't like the results, so they're shoehorning in the public sector bargaining right issue into basically just trying to get rid of the governor they just elected?
Yeah, I mean, clearly this was politics from the very beginning, and now you have this issue of collective bargaining was the one that they really drove the horse on. But the thing is, now President Obama is facing a pretty difficult situation because he has this recall. Looks like it's not going anywhere. It's affecting his chances to hold on to the state. And you sort of see this vaulted machine in the White House not really thinking through these steps, because this was a disaster that was about to happen. They could have derailed it. They didn't do it. And now they've got some really pretty hard choices to make.
Well, there's another national parallel that I see in this as well. The unions were certainly the initial force behind this. They were the energy under this movement, and their issue was the collective bargaining rights. But as that didn't resonate, as you point out and the poll suggests, with a larger swath of voters, they went issue shopping. They went looking for other things that resonate with voters. That is exactly, I think, what we're seeing at the national level right now. Barack Obama is trying one issue after another. I know, Buck, we had this debate the other night about whether or not Bain is a tried and true message they're going to stick with, or if it's the message of the week. They cannot find the one that really galvanizes a large swath of voters, and they keep trotting out another one and another one.
Is the idea, you think, to sort of put together a coalition of grievances then to get rid of them? So it's,
I like how you called that a coalition of grievances.
Thank you. I try.
But you also remember that one of the issues there was also contributing to health care. If you're a private sector union guy, you have to pay in part for your health care. When you see some of these public sector workers who won't even put in 1% or 2%, it's like, come on, you got to play like everybody else.
Well, that's why the collective bargaining thing, I think, is a loser for them, again, as a means to get Walker out. Because if you start hitting on that collective bargaining issue, not only do you then subject yourself to, well, what has that done in this state? And then you start pulling out numbers. Have Walker's reforms worked or not? You also open yourself up to what I don't think Walker did a lot of, but he certainly could if he wanted to, which is what exactly are these collective bargaining rights giving these public sector employees? Which I have to say, if people looked into it, it's excessive across the board.
You're always asking questions around here. Let me ask you a question. How about this? Does this play that there's a realistic chance that Mitt Romney could win Wisconsin? Now, Republicans haven't won Wisconsin in a presidential race since 1984, and Barack Obama won Wisconsin by 14 points. Is it fool's gold, or is it realistic?
My understanding is that he's very well up, actually, among Wisconsin voters generally in the general election, and that Wisconsin still looks good for him. But I look at this in terms of Obama and the White House's strategy when it came to this recall. Was it a mistake for them to let the recall go forward, considering that Scott Walker is so well ahead? The public actually supports the recall, the reform efforts. So Obama he's getting the worst of both worlds, that he's on the wrong side of the policy and the wrong side of the election.
Yeah, momentum is everything. And if Walker wins, which is really possible, then that really puts the Democrats at a difficult position, because then they've got to start to defend Wisconsin. And that means, yeah, they very well may win it on November 6th, but that means they're going to have to spend time and money. And that means every dollar in Wisconsin is one less dollar in Ohio or Florida or somewhere else where they really need to win. And that's why I think the White House really has been behind the curve on this. And it shows, I think, a sort of a failure to think through some of these very important issues.
There are some technical benefits, though, we should point out that right now the Democratic Party is in Wisconsin kind of working on get-out-the-vote efforts, right? Well, that infrastructure, you would think, and those registered voters and that energy would be in place, 5 months from now as well, come November. At the same time, you lose, as you point out, you lose enthusiasm. Not only that, how about this? How about just disenchantment and worn out? Wisconsin has been through political hell for how long now? I mean, a long time.
Talk about a battleground, man.
Right.
Just sit
But what did Scott Walker really do that was that
Who
bad?
do they blame for the controversies that they don't want to now deal with?
Do you think that the Obama administration maybe didn't go all in on this as much as they should? I think the explanation you give on this would make sense. I think I'm also wondering if there's a concern that not only are they behind the curve on this, but if they were to now rush in too many resources or make it look like, you know,
they get a big
they're good at that,
eye.
but it also it's a brand damaging experience for the White House. If if Barack Obama flew up to Wisconsin tomorrow and made a speech about how this is where liberal democratic America makes its stand, and then Walker wins,
He did that. He did that for Corzine, and he lost.
Right, and that, I think he may have learned from that experience, which is that if you better not throw your hat behind a guy who's about to get shown the door.
But they could have killed him at an early stage, Scott Walker. Right after the recall election, when he was really in trouble, if the White House came in and really just slaughtered him, they wouldn't have had this problem. And now that they are in a situation,
so now it's too late to do it.
Now it's too late to do it.
But the problem
really
is
need to do
there
it
are
earlier.
stories the Democratic National Committee always thought this was a bad fight, told the unions, this is a bad fight. You're going to expend energy and you're going to lose. And that's another interesting element. It's unions versus the political element of the Democratic Party. And the truth is, if you're seeking losers in this deal, the unions are the biggest loser in this deal.
They made the worst
You also have to, again, sometimes people vote differently in state, local, and federal. You might have been a blue state voter who voted for Ronald Reagan because you thought, well, I'm going to elect a liberal senator to go to Washington and pull things back from other states, in pork barrel spending, Robert Byrd, West Virginia. But I like that Ronald Reagan guy because there are some things about the progressive left I don't want leading this country. There are some voters who might have said, I'll vote for Barack Obama because he's going to promise things to come to my state, but I kind of want these reforms in this state. And really, nobody got that hurt. Scott Walker didn't come in and say, we're going to take a sledgehammer and beat you public unions over the head.
No, it
He
was
said,
a pinprick.
Yeah, it was like,
they got
we're
so
just
upset
going
over
to
it.
treat you like everybody else, and we're not going to let you have these insanely bloated pensions and pay increases.
Right. So they could be the ticket splitter that, pollsters are always saying don't exist.
Can I just say something?
What's that?
It's Harold Shapeburger.
Thank you, Will.
Hey sound.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Harold, I hope you heard. A little later in the show, a look at the controversy surrounding one of President Abraham Lincoln's most famous works. But first, we'll take a look at the top 3 stories on theblaze.com as determined by you. They're up next.
By age 5, I could drain a three-pointer. By 8, I could outplay opponents twice my size. By 10, I knew someday I would make the pros. Focus, dedication, determination. These are the things that have prepared me for today. But for what tomorrow might bring, I prepared with Food Insurance Emergency Food Supply. It gives me the confidence to face any opposition. Order today at foodinsurance.com.
Hi everyone, this is Amelia from FreedomWorks, here to invite you to a very special event. Free Pack is a national gathering of Americans interested in restoring freedom. This year's event will feature speeches from Glenn Beck, Dick Armey, Matt Kibbe, and many of the biggest names in the freedom movement. So go to freepack.com today to pre-register and help restore liberty in your community and across the nation.
You look so beautiful, but you're about to lose everything.
You're gonna lose everything.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here.
You're gonna lose your files.
There's no warning when you lose your computer files. That's why you need Carbonite Online Backup. So whatever happens, your files are safe. Try it for free at Carbonite.com.
Food independence, emergency preparedness, self-reliance. MyPatriotSupply.com. Get our survival seed vault and feed your family from your own garden for just $37.95. Our non-hybrid heirloom seeds are genuinely American, just like you. Your survival needs and survival seeds are at MyPatriotSupply.com. MyPatriotSupply.com. Self-reliance. MyPatriotSupply.com.
So what's piquing the interest of readers of The Blaze right this very second? For that answer, let's check in for the final time this week with the site's editor-in-chief, Scott Baker. Hey, Scott.
It is the final time this week. And do we have a show on Monday? I don't even know if I know. I'll be here. I'll just be hanging out. Monday, I promise. Taking a look at the top 3 stories on the Blaze right now, and number 3 story right now involves Mr. Kane, actually, and his conversation with Debbie Wasserman Schultz. This is getting to be a thing. It's kind of like a cage match. They're sort of like the mixed martial artists of cable television. You put Will Kane and Debbie Wasserman Schultz together, interesting things are going to happen. Another testy exchange. And I think we can all pretty much rely on the fact that it's not Will that's the one that gets out of control. Number 2 story on the Blaze right now, and I really don't want to give much more away than just to say what the headline is, which is this the greatest political ad ever? You'll have to see it to believe it. The number 1 story on the Blaze has been a big source of focus today, both for the Blaze and also for Glenn Beck on his radio program today. There is a story that many people may not be aware of involving a man named Brett Kimberline. It is an extraordinarily complicated and disturbing story of one man's mission to be a kind of an internet terrorist, a guy who was a domestic terrorist, went to jail for setting off bombs. And the war that he has waged on conservative bloggers, this is a deep story for us. It's one that's now over 10,000 likes on Facebook, over 1,600 tweets on the Blaze. You'll want to dive into this story if you haven't followed it. The last one that I'll say is a story to boost. The Southern Poverty Law Center has put out a new list. As you know, they track hate crimes in this country. And they have put out a new list of radical right leaders. 2 big surprises on that list. One, they list the new Black Panthers as a radical right group. That will astound Blaze readers and viewers. And also on that list, Frank Gaffney and David Barton. I know. You'll have to sort it through and read it to fully understand it. Astounding.
Very astounding. Well, we appreciate you bringing us those stories tonight, Scott.
Have a great weekend.
And have a great Memorial weekend. When we return, Will Kane brings us our latest installment of Real History. The controversy surrounding one of President Lincoln's most famous works. Stay tuned.
Bringing a firearm into your home is one of the most important decisions you can make. If you are considering gun ownership, CheaperThanDirt.com is here to help you make a responsible and informed choice. We understand it is a personal decision how you choose to protect your family. We offer thousands of choices of firearms, ammunition, and accessories to suit your individual needs. Be responsible, be proactive, and exercise your Second Amendment right. Find us online at CheaperThanDirt.com. That's CheaperThanDirt.com.
The TRS Files, True Tax Resolution Stories.
Hello, I'm Gary, and I'm not a paid actor. I went from owing $43,000 to the Internal Revenue Service to paying them $1,000.
If you owe the IRS over $20,000 or more in back taxes, have unfiled returns, or are under audit, call Tax Resolution Services now, 888-7804-TAX, or visit taxresolution.com/GBTV.
Hello, friend. I'm Pat Boone. Are you dreaming of an ideal retirement? Well, if you're 62 or older, there's a smart and easy way to get the money to make it happen. A reverse mortgage from my friends at Security One Lending, a national leader in reverse mortgages. They can help you turn the equity in your home into tax-free cash. Call to get this free, no-obligation information kit, which includes an educational video and the top 10 things to know about reverse mortgages. Why don't you call now?
If you're living with diabetes and have Medicare or private insurance, here is some great news. Call United States Medical Supply today, and we'll send you the smallest glucose meter in the world, absolutely free.
It only takes a speck of blood, and it gives me my results in 5 seconds.
And there's no coding for easier, more accurate results.
Don't let diabetes get in the way of living. Give us a call today at United States Medical Supply and get the smallest meter in the world for free.
This weekend, we'll remember all those who've fallen serving this country. But we should also remember that for every soldier who dies in the line of duty, there's often a wife, a child, or in the case of Lydia Bixby of Massachusetts, a bereaved mother who share in that sacrifice. Now, in 1864, news of Mrs. Bixby found its way to President Abraham Lincoln. And for 150 years, his response to her sacrifice has been a source of inspiration and controversy.
The
letter to Mrs. Bixby is regarded as one of Lincoln's great literary masterpieces. In fact, many people say that Lincoln's literary reputation rests on three pillars: the Gettysburg Address, the second inaugural address, and the letter to Mrs. Bixby. Lincoln was asked to write the letter because the Adjutant General of Massachusetts had told the Governor of Massachusetts that a widow had come to him saying that she had lost 5 sons in the war. And the Adjutant General told the Governor of Massachusetts, this woman ought to be acknowledged. So the Governor of Massachusetts wrote to the President saying, would you write a letter? The letter to Mrs. Bixby read as follows. Dear Madam, I have been shown in the files of the War Department a statement of the Adjutant General of Massachusetts that you are the mother of 5 sons who have died gloriously upon the field of battle. I feel how weak and fruitless must be any words of mine which should attempt to beguile you from the grief of a loss so overwhelming. But I cannot refrain from tendering to you the consolation that may be found in the thanks of the Republic they died to save. I pray that our Heavenly Father may assuage the anguish of your bereavement and leave you only the cherished memory of the loved and lost, and the solemn pride that must be yours to have laid so costly a sacrifice upon the altar of freedom. Controversy surrounding the authorship of this letter began when John Hay, who was Lincoln's personal secretary in the White House, toward the end of his life told several people that he, Hay, had actually written the letter. But John Hay told those folks not to reveal that until after he, John Hay, had died. And when they did so, a controversy arose. My personal belief about the authorship of the Bixby letter is that John Hay wrote it and that Abraham Lincoln signed it. The tip-off was the scrapbook. I discovered that because I was doing research at the John Hay Library on Lincoln in general, and one of the librarians brought me a scrapbook and said, well, you might want to look at this. And most of the scrapbook contained writings by John Hay that dated after the Civil War. And I happened to notice that the Bixby letter was there. But I thought, why would he clip this out of the newspaper and paste it into a scrapbook of his own writings unless he wrote it? And so that led me to do the research in Hay's writings and in Lincoln's writings. It has John Hay's stylistic fingerprints all over it. For example, John Hay regularly used the word beguile. Lincoln never did. John Hay often used the word assuage. Lincoln never did. And John Hay was a very gifted writer. He was a Brown University graduate, and he had been the class poet. He wrote poems that became celebrated, and he was regarded as one of the pioneers of the vernacular school of American literature. I've read everything that John Hay wrote that I could lay my hands on, and in addition, what I discovered, which previous historians hadn't realized, is that John Hay, when he was serving as Lincoln's personal secretary in the White House, wrote for newspapers regularly, giving an administration spin to the news. And I uncovered these and I published them as a series of articles that was known as Lincoln's Journalist. Lincoln's schedule was very busy at that time. He was busy composing his annual message to Congress, which today we would call the State of the Union message. And I think what happened when Lincoln received the letter from the governor of Massachusetts, he said, John, I'm very busy right now. Would you please write a letter of condolence? And John Hay, given his mastery of English prose style, dashed off this letter. Lincoln signed it, and off it went. There's more to the story than just the authorship. Mrs. Bixby told the Adjutant General that she had lost 5 sons, when in fact she had only lost 2. In effect, she was a kind of welfare cheat, trying to get money for having lost 5 sons. The 3 sons who survived, one of them deserted to the Confederate Army, another one may have done so, and the other was honorably discharged. On top of that, the notion that she was a kind of gold star patriotic mother is very misleading. According to some accounts, she ran a whorehouse in Boston. She had been raised in Richmond, Virginia, and didn't like Lincoln, and she tore up the letter when she got it. There are some people who argue that if you suggest that Abraham Lincoln did not actually write the Bixby letter, that you are anti-Lincoln. Well, that I don't believe is the case at all. One of the things we should take away from this story is that John Hay was an unusually gifted writer, and that far from detracting from Lincoln's reputation, that any man who wrote the second inaugural address, in which he said, fondly do we hope, fervently do we pray, that this mighty scourge of war may speedily pass away. And similarly with the Gettysburg Address. 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth upon this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. A man who could write sentences like that never needs to worry that his literary reputation will be eclipsed.
We should say that Michael Burlingame, who was the historian in the piece we just listened to, is not the only person who questions the authenticity of the Lincoln letter. And beyond the story simply being a story of, well, actually fraud on both ends of the spectrum, from the authorship of Lincoln's letter to the circumstances surrounding Mrs. Bixby, unless anyone here is a Lincoln historian, I think that can dispute those charges. I think what's interesting is to actually ask this question: does it matter? At some point, do national myths and their own importance become more important than the authenticity of the myth?
Well, if this guy was such the writer, wouldn't an executive, isn't this how executives delegate authority? If Lincoln was not a great writer in this sense, wouldn't it make sense? I mean, Amy, you wrote speeches for senators. I mean, did anyone ever say, well, gee, Bill Frist didn't write that? I mean, presidents have done this since we've had one.
And there's another narrative here, and that is that great countries take stories, whether they're true or not true, and make them a part of the history. And this is what happened with Steven Spielberg's, Saving Private Ryan, President Bush using this letter in connection with September 11th, and it really builds the strength of the nation when you take a story like this and you make it part of yourself. And it doesn't really matter whether whatever happened, who wrote it or whatever. It's just that we have made it important.
Yeah, I agree with Gordon. The power of it comes from the words and the sentiment. And Lincoln did sign it. It was on his behalf. I mean, I don't think we expect politicians to write, as we know, they don't write all the things that they say, and they probably don't write all the things they're supposed to have written. So I think that the letter speaks for itself.
We should probably put some governor on our sentiments about the importance of mythology. I mean, I think we can speak to other countries where mythology has no bearing to the truth. And certainly you don't want to see these kind of dictatorish regimes use patriotism and mythology to...
It was interesting that he was anonymously writing newspaper articles, though.
Propaganda.
So we were talking about propaganda the other day, that somebody would be in the White House and sending on behalf of the chief executive news stories to just give the proper flavor to what's going on.
And I think it's important to note, too, that in the letter, they're not, the writer, John Hay, if he was the writer, wasn't fabricating the events that he was addressing, but trying to capture the sentiments, the patriotism. He had the phrase, so costly a sacrifice upon the altar of freedom, and expressing that from the executive, which Abraham Lincoln, he signed off on it, so clearly he endorsed this, that the President of the United States thanks you, the private citizen, for the sacrifice you've made.
And that's really important, because what it shows is Lincoln's empathy. Lincoln can understand the suffering of the American people because of the Civil War, and that's really what set him apart from many other presidents who have gone through a war situation. So I think it really is important that he would even think about responding to the letter, whether he wrote it himself or not.
That makes a lot of sense. Well, we're almost all ready to kick off Memorial Day weekend, but before we do, we wanted to take a few moments to visit with just one of the thousands of men and women who have given so selflessly to defend our country. His story is coming up next.
Coming this year from Mercury Inc., President Obama calls his childhood mentor Frank, but he was so much more. A writer, an entrepreneur, an activist, and a full-fledged communist. Author Paul Kanger reveals the untold story of the communist who changed America forever. Then, a publishing first, a 10-part ebook thriller series released over the course of 1 year. From New York Times bestselling author Chris Stewart. By June, the battle will be raging, not for the Oval Office, but for our souls. It's time to find a new way forward. The Ultimate Voter's Guide from Glenn Beck. In the fall, we turn to entertainment with 2 groundbreaking sequels. First, the young adult thriller Michael Vey, Rise of the Elgin. And then, the long-awaited sequel to Glenn's smash hit novel, The Overton Window, finally arrives. It's a year of education, entertainment, enlightenment, and of course, the election. All coming this year from Glenn Beck and Mercury Inc.
Before you hit the polls, see what makes candidate Glenn Beck unelectable.
If you find oil on Mount Rushmore, I will be the first to gladly drill through Teddy Roosevelt's head.
Glenn Beck and the BS of A take the stage for a brand new live comedy tour.
$2 for how much gas?
We haven't established that yet. Those are details that you work out after you are elected.
It's unelectable too.
If I may just say, my opponent is a moron.
Because you might as well laugh before you cry. Visit GlennBeckTours.com for details. People are talking. Join the conversation. Like GBTV and Glenn on Facebook. And follow us on Twitter. Let your voice be heard.
Monday is, of course, Memorial Day, a time to remember all of the men and women who've given their lives in service to our country, and a time to give thanks to those who once served and to those who continue to. We are, after all, still a nation at war, so as we offer our gratitude for the bravery of generations of American troops who fought for our freedom, we might also want to think about why they do it. That's perhaps best illustrated in a poignant piece in today's Wall Street Journal written by a retired Marine colonel who lost his son in Iraq. Before First Lieutenant Travis Mannion left for his second and final deployment, he told his father, quote, "If not me, then who?" Well, we're joined now by a retired Navy SEAL, Brandon Webb, who served in both Iraq and Afghanistan. He's also the author of The Red Circle. And Brandon, clearly you asked yourself that question and you decided that you wanted to go into service. Did the Wall Street Journal piece resonate with you personally?
Yeah, you know, I read the piece and, you know, what really showed up to me was just the sacrifice that the men and women have made for this country for over a decade. And, you know, and their stories a lot of times go unheard, so I just think it's important to take a time out on Memorial Day to really honor these men and women that have paid the ultimate price and given their lives. And, you know, you write books. I wrote my book, The Red Circle, and part of that was to honor the teammates that I'd served with that gave their lives overseas and tell their stories that would never be told otherwise.
Well, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to ask, you know, without getting into any politics, do you feel like Americans right now don't have a sense that we're still at war? I mean, because I get that sense that because we've talked about drawdown so much, because of what's happened in Iraq, that there's not enough of a focus on the fact that we still have people putting themselves at harm's way in Afghanistan as well as in some other places, but certainly in Afghanistan.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think, you know, you look at the situation after 9/11 and the country comes together and rallies behind, you know, the global war on terror, and, you know, over time that kind of that fire gets degraded a bit. And you know, again, I just think it's important on Memorial Day for people to understand that there's people right now, men and women over in Afghanistan, North Africa, Philippines, you know, putting their lives on the line every day.
You know, Brandon, last time we were together, I think we were all talking at this table, I think I asked you, why did you sign up? and we talked about your life a little bit before you joined the SEALs. You grew up in California. I think you went on a long boat trip with your family, had a falling out with your dad, some story like that.
Yeah.
When you signed up for your military service, how much of that was kind of for you, because this was something you wanted to do, versus how much of that was out of a sense of patriotism?
Well, I talk about it in the Red Circle. I was born in Canada, so I was a Canadian citizen originally. My father's Canadian, my mother's a U.S. citizen. So I gave up my citizenship, my Canadian citizenship, for a U.S. citizenship. So I've always felt a sense of pride being an American citizen, and for me, signing up for the SEALs was not only a chance to be a part of one of the most deadliest fighting forces and the best fighting forces on the planet, but also a chance for me to give back to my own country and serve.
Following up on what Buck said, is there a sense of abandonment of our troops in the field at this point? Was there a sense that people, not just forgotten, but that really that the American public has withdrawn?
I wouldn't call it abandonment, because whether I'm in New York or Texas, I've seen the majority of the U.S. citizens that I come into contact to respect the men and women in uniform. They respect the service. The problem is they don't understand the issues, and to Buck's point, they don't get what's going on in the real world. Unfortunately, you look at people who are logging, and more people are watching, paying attention to Dancing with the Stars and American Idol than they are the real issues that are happening in this country. And that's the sad thing I see that's happening.
I mean, because we have essentially a warrior class in this country, we have a volunteer military that is protecting us, that is the national security force that we rely on. I feel like a lot of people feel a little sort of removed from what's going on. And this would be a time, this is finally a time where I think it would be worth it for Americans to, or they should be focusing more on that as an issue.
But this is one of the things the government's supposed to be doing. We have a federal government that does so many things it's not supposed to do. It forgets the things it's supposed to do. Raising and supporting Army and Navies is one of the enumerated powers. That means when we send men and women into combat, it's not over when they get home. We have injuries, PTSD. We have people that we sort of forget. I mean, what was the phrase? I heard a Marine reservist once say spare parts. That soldiers are looked at almost like robots, that when they get home, they're just sort of, like useless robots in the minds of government, that they just forget about them. And that's the thing that we need to demand our government do more of. Stop doing the things that are political in nature for you and start paying attention to the people that you actually sent out to enforce your politics and your policy.
Well, then, and also, I talked to Admiral Craven, who's in charge of SOCOM, and it's a big initiative at SOCOM, this preservation of force, because you not only do you have the guys that are coming back and getting out, you have this worn out force out there that's been just battle weary, and morale is taking a toll.
It's time for these guys to come home, be with their families, have some time in the home front, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I think we talk about what this weekend's about, Memorial Day, honoring those who have died for this country. I think for a lot of us, now we know people that served in the military, we might have friends or family that served in the military, but the concept of honoring someone who's actually died in service to this country can almost become theoretical. It's something that we know happens, but maybe not touch every single person. For you, this weekend, you mentioned this earlier, how many guys are you going to think about personally on a weekend like this?
Well, funny thing you say that, because I had my second book that I was working on, and it just hit me like a brick a week ago that, I in the back of the Red Circle, I talk about 8 SEAL teammates that I lost and honored in the acknowledgements, and so those are the
guys.
8 guys.
What were their names?
Off the top of my head, you've Axelson, who was on with Luttrell and Lone Survivor. You've got Dietz, Murphy, Robinson, who's a close friend of mine, died in that last helo crash. I could name 20,
right,
but the guys that, there's 8 guys that I serve with, and I chose to write my next book and donate all the proceeds to the Navy SEAL Foundation, and it's called Lost Heroes, and it's telling these guys individual stories that would have never otherwise been hurt. Even their families. I ran into their families at a recent charity event with Marcus Luttrell, and I was talking to Axelson's mother, and she said, "Look, I never knew that about my son. Like, you're telling me stories that, these are guy stories,
Right.
when you're in the SEAL teams, and their families will never know." So I just think to honor those 8 men and, write this book called Lost Heroes that's, for me, a good way to give back and make sure that these guys, their memories live on.
So Brandon, as our viewers are heading into their Memorial weekends, there'll be lots of barbecues, people going to the beach, maybe even going shopping at the white sales to buy bedding. What would you like our viewers to know about how to think about Memorial Day and what our armed forces, want to say to them?
Yeah, I just think it's a time to reflect and maybe look at what's going on in the world, and I don't think a whole lot of veterans out there need praise, or it's nice to get someone to thank you for your service, but just for them to think about really what's happening in the world and the sacrifice that men and women are making, not only in the military but at a lot of different agencies, a lot of 3-letter agencies,
Right.
CIA, the State Department, these guys are overseas, men and women, protecting our country. So.
And I also noticed that Andrew
Yep,
threw
right
on
here.
this windbreakers.
It's a Brandon Webb original here. Look at this,
Tell us about it, a little product placement here.
Yeah, I partnered with a company called Massif, and they started in making high-end technical apparel for the military, and they were launching an co-branded outdoor line, and I'm pretty excited to be working with that company and making a lot of really cool products. So.
Yeah, I told him, just don't give me anything to get my butt kicked for wearing on the street. Like, I'm not going to wear that trident,
You got that trident right there.
No, that's
Version
his.
of
That's
that
his. That's his
trident. Yeah.
symbol. But that's the official trident. You don't want to go walking around, wearing something that says you're someone you're not.
Yeah, that looks pretty nifty, pretty.
I love
dashing.
this.
Absolutely. So, Brendan, before we go, where can people find your book?
Amazon, probably the easiest place, or my website, BrandonTylerWeb.com, has all the links.
All right, terrific.
I'm in the middle of it right now. It's very good.
Fantastic. Brandon, thank you for your time,
Thanks,
for your
Amy.
service to our country. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Usually at the end of the program, we scroll through the names of all the hardworking people here at GBTV. But tonight, the names we've chosen to single out for thanks are those of the U.S. military members who this year gave the ultimate sacrifice to their country. Good night and happy Memorial Weekend to everybody.